friends and neighbors of the Bronx, and welcome to Bronx Talk. The Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show was watched by more than 128 million people on NBC, 69 million more on YouTube, and had more than, hold your breath, 4 billion views on social media within the first 24 hours after the performance. Spoken and sung all in Spanish, other than Lady Gaga's vocals, it shed light on an unapologetic view of Puerto Ricans' too often untold history through a panorama of music, dance, and cultural icons. There were, of course, naysayers, starting with the President of the United States, who said the show was absolutely terrible and an affront to the greatness of America and a slap in the face to the country. Nonetheless, here in the Bronx, where more than 45% of the people speak Spanish in their homes and 54% of the Bronx is Hispanic, the performance by Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, Bad Bunny, brought immense joy for a variety of reasons. Our two guests have a lot to say about it, as you might imagine. Please join me in welcoming a 9-time Grammy nominee, the Maestro of the Multiverse Orchestra, and a member, like I am, of the Bronx Walk of Fame, the one and only percussionist extraordinaire, Bobby Sanabria. Nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here, always.
Thank you so much. And another Bronx icon is with us, too. He's a professor of African American Studies and History and the founder and director of the Bronx African American History Project, both at Fordham University. It is Dr. Mark Naison. Dr. Naison, nice to have you with us, sir.
Great to be back on your show and great to be talking about this subject with the great Bobby Sanabria.
There you go. We got two great guests. Bobby, let's start with you. When did you realize that the show was going to be special? Did you have any premonition about it or any thought, or did it just come on and you were like, whoa, this is good?
Right from the very beginning. The only thing I was hoping for before it, leading up to it, that the Bad Bunny would use El Gran Combo from Puerto Rico, the great salsa orchestra, the University of Salsa, as we know it worldwide, as part of the show. But he didn't disappoint. It was just mind-boggling. I was with some friends, myself, Elena, at our home. We were all in shock when he started off with the young man from the Dominican Republic with the guitar that said, "Que lindo es ser Latino." You know, how great it is, how beautiful it is to be Latino. Right from that, and then the sugarcane fields, it was just amazing.
We'll go through a lot of that. I was thinking of you, actually, because of the variety of music, and I said, and we've had so many discussions in this room about different kinds of Latin music. Right. You must have been like, wow, that's, just pointing out what each one is. You knew it every step of the way, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was, of course, salsa, which is basically Cuban music, the way we play here. We New Yorkers and also Puerto Ricans on the island, our interpretation of it. There was, of course, reggaeton, trap, and of course, then what was so meaningful at the very end, ending with our musical newspaper on the island, the Plena, with the jingleless frame drums, born in Guayama and Ponce, Puerto Rico, brought to New York City in the 20s by Manuel El Canario Jimenez, and now everybody knows what Plena is.
It really is eye-opening in many ways. Dr. Naison, we really want to get a larger vision of the whole thing from you. Where does this fall in the pantheon of the fight for racial equity and acceptance and diversity? Was this a seminal moment? I mean, from your writings and things, I feel like you believe that.
I think it was a very powerful moment. All for the last few months, my students have been incredibly depressed about what's been going on in the country, especially the ICE raids, and what we saw in Minneapolis, that 5-year-old child being taken into custody. And it's been hard teaching. And when I walked in to meet my classes on Tuesday, the whole atmosphere had changed. It's like they felt affirmed. They felt hopeful. It gave them a sense that the future was not going to be dismal, that the forces of oppression were not going to win, because this was the largest stage in the world. and this great artist from Puerto Rico who embraced all of Latin America and who also has always embraced the Bronx, had the largest stage and commanded it. It was a beautiful moment in my classes at a time when beautiful moments have been missing.
Now, Bobby wrote something right away, right afterwards on Facebook, and I saw it. And this was the first line that he wrote, and I want you to comment on it. The first thing he said, and again, let's just hear from your perspective where this is at. It was the most incredible FU to the Trump administration and racism that I have ever witnessed. What are your thoughts about that? What was, even though Trump was never mentioned and everything in a way was implied, was it really that?
What I would say was Kendrick Lamar's halftime show last year was close. But this was a much more dangerous historic moment. So, and I actually, in terms of larger impact, I agree with Bobby, because things were so much worse now than they were a year ago. So this message was all the more needed and all the more powerful and all the more part of an upsurge of resistance. So I agree with Bobby.
You know, how will it play in the political world? And I'm going to ask him the same question, but we certainly want your input. Do you think this will affect politics, people's attitudes, even, you know, the midterms coming up? I mean, will it really play there, or is it just kind of more cultural stuff that's certainly valuable in our country?
This is, to me, the greatest movement in the country are the high school walkouts against ICE, which have been occurring in Texas, in Indiana, Wisconsin, Chicago, California, in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And this is a movement that is going to have tremendous impact and growth as the spring goes on. And this is a joyous movement. And so Bad Bunny's performance gives all these young people energy to build on this, because the sense is we're going to win. They are not going to silence us.
Which was not the case in the past. Bobby, you told me beforehand. First of all, do you want to comment on the politics of it, or we'll move on?
Well, the politics of it was obvious, but I've said this before. Right after it, I said to myself and to the gathering of people that were with us at home, this is the most incredible piece of performance art with a socio-political message that I have ever seen. It's incredible. This will be studied for years upon years, both by academia and also everyone talking about it for years to come.
You know, as someone in the media, I'm interested in how media affects the world and how it affects people's attitudes. I think this is going to have great effect. Let's talk about the performance, which you have broken down. I should tell people that rather than show clips from the actual performance, because 200 million people have already seen it and 4 billion have had attitudes about it, we're going to show some of the TikToks that I pulled out. So this first one is the setup of performers. As I understand, first of all, he had 380 people dressed as sugar canes. The NFL had only 25 carts, so he said, well, then we got to get it all in there, and he dressed people as sugar canes. They had 330 dancers, singers, and extras. Talk a little bit about, just as a piece of art, what this was.
Well, they set that up in 7.5 minutes.
That's what we're watching here.
We're looking at the time-lapse photography, just an amazing degree of behind-the-scenes production values. I would love to meet the team of people that thought this up. I'm sure Benito was heading it, but just all of the vision behind it, how it came together, et cetera, et cetera. And we have to give credit to the NFL and Jay-Z for allowing this to happen.
I think the NFL certainly gets a lot of credit. There were a couple of little nuances, and I found out just doing the research. I said to Bobby, I'm a gringo. I got a real education out of this. The 64 he was wearing was a nod to his uncle, Cutito, which is 1964, the year he was born, et cetera, et cetera. You wrote, the reality check meets the hipness report. Bravo, Benito. So talk about the moments of history that was so significant in there.
Well, the beginning, in the beginning, for the average person watching that doesn't know that doesn't know anything about the history of Puerto Rico, they learned right away. Oh, the island was based on a sugarcane refining industry, and that we have a folk tradition of music, starting with the string guitar, and then moving on to the incredible visuals of the recreation of the blackout in Puerto Rico. And the song that Benito sang, El Apagón, the combination rap song that he had put out already, but now it was visualized for everyone. And I'm sure people that have no idea or paying attention at all to Puerto Rico were asking, what does that mean? What does that mean with the lampposts, et cetera, et cetera? And people were talking. The whole thing about art, great art, is, in my opinion, that it inspires you and also makes you think, and it also makes you talk. So everybody has been talking about this throughout the country. For those who didn't like it, well, I've been reading the negative posts. I look at it this way. This is when fear, ignorance, and stupidity all intersect, and it comes out in these negative posts.
There was one scene which I looked at and I said, oh, that's got to be cut. Was this business when he fell through the roof and then into the casita. I thought that was kind of extraordinary. So this was, as you say, performance art and well done. You can see it right here. At first I thought, oh, they must have cut that. The fact that they did all of that live is rather extraordinary.
Well, it was filmed beforehand, the interior, but it was synchronized in perfect time with when he walked out the door. So kudos to the production values.
Dr. Naison, just back to you. A New York Times reporter said that it was politically toned down, basically on what you said to us a couple of moments ago, that this really was a gigantic political act of resistance. Just using even just the moment that we saw, what do you pull out of that verifies the notion that this was really about resistance, other than a wonderful cultural piece? There's no question about that.
We have had ICE racially profiling Latinos with the approval of the U.S. Supreme Court for the last 8 months. You have a whole culture and demographic in the U.S. who has been under attack by the federal government, being terrorized. So just having a performer performing entirely in Spanish and then claiming the Americas as every country in the Western Hemisphere, that alone was an incredibly powerful political statement, given the demonization, intimidation, and terror so many people who are Latino in America have been experiencing.
There's no question about it, and people that I've talked to and other people that I've seen, on TV, et cetera, they said, wow, finally somebody knows who we are. It's like we've been living these lives, and now they finally know who we are.
Especially the Puerto Rican community in the diaspora here in New York. We've never been given credit for all of the incredible contributions we've made to the city and opening the doors for Latinos from all over the Americas to come here.
You wrote about, Bobby put out something, you can look at his Facebook page or wherever else he put it out, but you wrote about a lot of things. You love the family-oriented scene, the notion of the wedding. Let's break down a couple of those scenes that were so important to you. The wedding, talk about that.
Well, it's what typically happens at a Latino wedding. You have an orchestra playing, and Lady Gaga was acting in the role of the wedding band singer,
right.
in English. And then she had, ironically, she has that flower from Puerto Rico, which is called La Maga, which was ironic to me. We were laughing about it. Those of us that were watching, go, look, she got the national flower of Puerto Rico, and it's called Maga, you know, which is obviously a double entendre thing against MAGA out there, and
That's that's actually what I never heard that.
Yeah,
that's what the flower is called.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, but
That is
it was
funny.
hilarious. There's so many Easter eggs in this. I've watched it 3 times over again, and I find new things. It's like sitting in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and looking at a beautiful painting. That's why they have benches in the museum, so that you could look at the art and think about it, contemplate it. This will be looked at for many, many more years. But every time I view it, like I did on Sunday for the first time in real time, I start crying because it's so emotional.
I watched it actually last night to make sure I was fresh with it before the program, and I got teary-eyed. Which is not the first time I got teary-eyed over watching it. The scene with the young boy was very interesting.
Right.
I immediately said that must be Liam, of course, the youngster who was deported and then brought back. I mean, what a nightmare.
And I wrote that in my commentary when I first saw it, but it was because a friend of ours that was with us was monitoring Facebook at the same time, and Rachel Maddow had posted that. But even though we afterwards it was confirmed that it wasn't supposed to represent that, it was supposed to represent Benito as a young boy. They obviously was purposeful. They got a young boy that looked like Liam, and the point was made that this kid represents not only Bad Bunny as a young boy, but every kid that has been abused by ICE.
I want you to talk a little bit about Tunita and what that is.
Tunita, yeah.
And what that is. I had never heard about it before. Of course, it's not in the Bronx, so I get a little bit of
Right.
forgiveness
Much
for
love
it.
to Brooklyn.
To Brooklyn. But talk about what that is and why it was so important to have it represented clearly. It was, you know, it wasn't like an Easter egg, as you called it. It was right there.
Well, Toñita's a senior citizen. She's in her mid-80s, and she has one of the last Puerto Rican social clubs in New York City, the last one in Brooklyn, to be specific. And we have a history in the Puerto Rican community here in New York City going back to the 30s of different people from different cities in Puerto Rico, towns, setting up these social clubs as places to gather so that you can relive your culture, keep your traditions alive, and of course a place where people can meet other people, recommend people for jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But mostly it's a gathering place to express the love and the remembrances of the soul of one's hometown in Puerto Rico, and she has one of the last ones. So the fact that he found out about her and he invited her to the Super Bowl and recreated her place was amazing.
You called it performance art. It is absolutely incredible. I want to play a piece that Bad Bunny said about personal engagement and then relate it to Dr. Naison and his students. I have some quotes from his students. But let's roll that clip there of Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl.
Y si hoy estoy aquí en el Super por 60 es porque nunca dejé de creer en mí. Tú también deberías de creer en ti. Vale más de lo que pienso. Créeme.
There it is. You're worth more than you think. Dr. Naison, I'm thinking, based on the things you said, that this is the kind of thing that reached students because he really took the time to talk to young people and say, be somebody, empower, you are great?
I think so much of this reached them. The last scene with all the flags, I have immigrant students from, 15 different countries, 10 of whom were represented in that march at the end. All of them are scared for their families and relatives. To have that march at the end was an incredibly, and saying, this is America, not the United States, every country in the hemisphere.
And what this...
That message was heard, including, Haiti.
Yes, and what he...
I have a number of Haitians.
What he said right
not
there...
just people who spoke.
And what he said right there was, you are important. This is, he helped kind of establish a sense of self, a sense of identity that, as you indicated earlier, had not existed before.
They felt this performance I can't think of a public cultural event which empowered my students as much as this one.
Here are some of the comments which you collected. From the visuals to the messaging, this is one of the Mark Naison students. The performance was a story of Puerto Rican history and excellence, community, and the power of love. Whether or not his messaging satisfied the audience's expectations, I felt he stayed true to himself as an artist and a person. Another student wrote, this year's Super Bowl halftime show really made me think a lot about language. It illuminated for me how music transcends language, and I know our guest in the studio agrees with that. Despite not knowing what any of Bad Bunny's songs were about, I was still moved by his performance, which, of course, I felt the same way. I mean, I don't speak the language as well as I
and to
should.
top it off, he ends with the quote from Martin Luther King: "The most powerful thing is not hate, it's love."
And that was on the scoreboard at the Super Bowl. My goodness. Before we go on, I want to just get to that whole thing about electricity and the notion of, what happened with Hurricane Maria and
The blackout,
the blackout, because that is a whole political and cultural discordance between the United States and Puerto Rico.
Well, as far as the U.S. government is concerned, from our point of view, it's an incredible embarrassment and a slap in the face to us as Puerto Ricans, whether you're from the diaspora community or obviously from the island. There's no excuse for it. And the fact that Luma has been basically taking advantage of it monetarily is as our Italian brothers and sisters would say, it's an insomnia.
I did some research to really understand it myself. The cinder blocks were from Operation Bootstrap, which apparently was to encourage mass sterilization of women. And 30% of women in Puerto Rico underwent surgeries. It's incomprehensible. And the women at the top of the polls were women, at least according to one reviewer, who said this was showing Operation Bootstrap, but the women were still strong and trying to rebuild the country.
That's part of the Easter eggs that were wrought throughout the entire performance. I encourage everybody to view it. You could put it on slow motion. You could put it on. You could stop it, et cetera, and start talking with your children about it. And if you don't know what's happening, ask your computer, and through AI, you'll probably get some answers. What does this mean? What does that mean? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And I'll ask you also about the Ricky Martin piece.
Oh, that was so hard. That's when I started crying. Because
I was going to explain it, but I'm sure you
go ahead, go right ahead.
No, you explain it better than I do.
Well, basically, a lot of people don't know that Hawaii, when it became the 50th state of the United States, or I don't know if it was Hawaii or Alaska, but that's neither here or there. Basically, the culture of Hawaii was disenfranchised, was taken away. all their native language, their cultural traditions. The hula dancing, that's just tourism. And a lot of people don't know that thousands of Puerto Ricans were recruited to work in the sugarcane fields in Hawaii. And I've met some of them, and they're longing to reclaim their culture, their history. They don't speak Spanish, or if they speak Spanish, it's really, you know, haphazard the way they speak it. But at least in Hawaii, oddly enough, the coqui, which is our tree frog, that has that whistle, is bountiful, plentiful throughout all of Hawaii.
Another one of the Easter eggs. Let's show that last moment of when he named all the countries. I think it's worth showing. So let's take a look at that.
God bless America. Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, México, Cuba, República Dominicana, Jamaica, Haití, las Antillas, United States, Canadá, and my motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico. Seguimos aquí.
He took out the hammer of truth and just laid it down. Amazing.
Dr. Naison, this is the kind of thing, it can't be repeated, but the size of the audience, to me, means that, much like we've been talking about, that it's going to have effect.
Look, many people don't realize how large the market for Latin music in the world. We had a group in the Bronx who took bachata and combined it with hip hop and R&B in, you know, the early 2000s, called Aventura. And when I went to speak in Spain and Germany in 2008, you could hear Aventura's version of bachata being played at bars in Barcelona and Berlin.
Dr. Naison, I got to interrupt you. We could talk for 3 hours about this. Thank you for your time on Bronx Talk today. And Bobby Sanabria, you got a new album coming out, right? The Multiverse, Bobby and the Multiverse Orchestra.
Yeah, April 10th. It's in honor of the great father of the mambo and son montuno, Arsenio Rodriguez. He holds the same position in what we call salsa today that Louis Armstrong has in jazz.
We got to run. Bobby Sanabria, Mark Naison, thank you so much. Folks, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Que viva Puerto Rico y América.